Here is your full YouTube script. 20% of all the world's oil moves through a strip of water just 33 kilometers wide, one corridor, one choke point, and right now it is under direct threat. In a matter of weeks, oil has surged past $110 a barrel, food prices are climbing, energy bills are spiking, and most people have no idea why. The answer sits in a narrow channel between Iran and the Arabian Peninsula, a place most people have never heard of, but one that quietly controls the fate of the global economy. It is called the Strait of Hormuz, and in the next 8 minutes, you will find out exactly why. To understand what is happening, you need to go back to February 24th, 2022. That is the day Russia rolls its forces into Ukraine. Most people catch the headline. They feel the weight of it for a moment. Then they return to their lives with one thought: that is happening over there. That single assumption that these events are distant, disconnected, someone else's problem, is the most dangerous mistake a person can make right now. Because what is unfolding across the Middle East, Eastern Europe, and the Pacific is not a collection of separate conflicts. It is one interconnected system under pressure. And the Strait of Hormuz is the pin that holds it all together. The strait sits at the entrance to the Persian Gulf. On one side, Iran. On the other, the Arabian Peninsula. Every single day, roughly 20 million barrels of oil pass through this corridor. That is 20% of all seaborne oil on Earth moving through a channel barely wider than a city. Japan draws 75% of its energy through it. China, 40%. India, 60%. These are not small economies absorbing a minor inconvenience. These are the manufacturing engines of the modern world, and they are all threading their energy supply through the same needle. Japanese Prime Minister Ishiba stated publicly that if the strait closes, Japan exhausts its oil supply within 8 to 9 months. Its economy does not slow. It contracts fast, and Japan is not alone. Then Iran moves. Shipping traffic through Hormuz drops by roughly 75% almost immediately. War risk insurance for vessels attempting passage surges approximately 50% in weeks. The market reacts before the smoke even clears. Brent crude climbs 39% from pre-conflict levels, crossing $110 per barrel. European natural gas prices rise 59%. Fertilizer, the critical input that feeds the world, jumps 34 to 35%. These are not projections. These are live numbers, and they are already inside your energy bill and your grocery receipt. But then everything changes. The connection most people miss is not between the strait and oil prices. It is between the strait and global food. The Gulf states import approximately 80% of their caloric intake through the same waterway that is now blocked. Kuwait draws 90% of its drinking water from desalination plants powered by the energy this corridor provides. Saudi Arabia, 70%. Across the Gulf region, 400 desalination facilities produce nearly 40% of all desalinated water on Earth. 100 million people depend on them directly. Iran understands this arithmetic with precision. Its strategy is not to fight the United States military in an open conventional war it cannot win. The strategy is surgical. Degrade the infrastructure, strike oil facilities, hit desalination plants, target energy hubs, cut the maritime corridors. You do not defeat a superpower in a straight fight. You make the cost of the fight unsustainable. And the economics of this strategy are staggering. Iran produces approximately 500 drones per day. Its estimated stockpile sits at around 8,000 units. Each one costs at most $20,000 to manufacture. The American interceptor missiles used to destroy them cost approximately $1 million each. On every single intercept, there is a 50-to-1 cost disadvantage for the United States. That math does not stay manageable. It compounds. At scale, it runs in Iran's favor, and Iran knows it. What happened next shocked the world. On March 19, 2026, the World Food Program issues an emergency warning. The Middle East conflict is generating a rapidly accelerating humanitarian crisis. Fuel and transport costs are transmitting through the entire global food system. Markets far removed from the fighting are registering the shock. Supermarkets in Europe, supply chains in Southeast Asia, commodity exchanges from Chicago to Singapore. This war is already present in your grocery store. It simply has not been formally announced. Now the crisis shifts into a dimension that demands complete attention. Because the Strait of Hormuz is not operating alone. It sits inside a wider collapse of the global order, and three separate pressure points are now firing at the same time. In Eastern Europe, Russia wages a grinding war in Ukraine under a military doctrine called escalate to de-escalate. The logic is cold and calculated. If Russia faces decisive conventional defeat, it deploys a tactical nuclear weapon, not to win the battle, but to force all parties to halt immediately. The United States intelligence community's 2026 annual threat assessment describes this as the most dangerous potential escalatory spiral in the world today. In June 2025, Ukraine strikes Russian strategic bombers near nuclear assets at the Olenia Air Base, a non-nuclear state deliberately targeting nuclear delivery systems. Analysts describe it as one of the most destabilizing military actions in years. France and the United Kingdom respond in July 2025 with the Northwood Declaration, formally stating their nuclear forces can be coordinated against extreme threats to European security. The following month, President Trump orders 2 nuclear submarines deployed to the region. North Korea, meanwhile, deploys over 1,500 troops and thousands of military engineers to fight alongside Russian forces in Ukraine in exchange for fuel, food, and advanced weapons technology. What began as a European territorial dispute has not been won for a long time. In the Pacific, China watches every development, and it accelerates. The Pentagon's 2025 China Military Power Report concludes that China has set a planning benchmark to be capable of fighting and winning a conflict over Taiwan by the end of 2027. In 2025, Chinese military aircraft conduct a record 3,570 incursions into Taiwan's surrounding airspace. December brings Beijing's largest military exercises around Taiwan in years. The United States responds with an $11 billion arms package to Taiwan, the largest in American history. Japan, constitutionally pacifist since the end of World War II, begins openly debating whether an attack on Taiwan triggers its own right to self-defense. Japanese missiles are already deployed to Yonaguni Island, approximately 70 miles from Taiwan's coast. Should Taiwan fall, a significant share of the global semiconductor supply chain goes dark. Every economy on Earth feels it within months. The reason all three crises are erupting simultaneously is not coincidence. For 70 years, a framework built after World War II holds the world together. American military power underwrites global security. The dollar anchors global trade. Multilateral institutions manage disputes short of armed conflict. That system is imperfect, but it holds. Now it is being stress-tested from 3 directions at once. Russia from the East, Iran from the Middle East, China from the Pacific. And the United States is internally divided about whether the cost of defending that order is one it is still willing to pay. Other nations are watching that division and drawing their own conclusions. 18 NATO members now meet the 2% GDP defense spending threshold, the highest number since that benchmark was adopted. Poland spends 4.48% of its GDP on defense. Sweden, neutral for 200 years, raises its defense budget by 34% in a single year. Nations do not make those decisions when they feel secure. The Bulletin of Atomic Scientists places the doomsday clock at 89 seconds to midnight in January 2026, closer to catastrophe than at any recorded point during the Cuban Missile Crisis. Scientists note an almost complete absence of communication on strategic stability among nuclear-armed adversaries. The channels that once prevented miscalculation have gone quiet. Wars almost never begin because every party chooses them. They begin because nobody watched the sequence carefully enough, because the machinery of escalation runs on its own internal logic. Once nuclear submarines deploy, once water infrastructure is targeted, once negotiating channels go silent, the available exits narrow with each passing week. The Strait of Hormuz is 33 kilometers wide, but what passes through it, oil, water, food, stability, connects every nation on Earth. What happens there does not stay there. It arrives in your energy bill, your grocery store, your retirement account, your future. The most dangerous thing any citizen can do right now is assume the people managing these crises have them under control. Watch the Strait. Watch Taiwan. Watch what your cost of living does in the next 90 days. And watch which leaders are speaking plainly about what is actually at stake and which ones are not. History does not announce itself. It builds quietly, pressures silently, and then breaks all at once. The question for the comments is this: do you think the world's leaders fully understand how close to the edge we actually are? Or are they playing catch-up with events they can no longer control? If you want more untold stories like this, subscribe. Because history is never what they teach you in school. Word count, 1,147 words.